gorgeous human beings of the channel. A summit of sisterhood for me, for you, for us. I just want to bring back the context of the summit. We're now on day 5 of the summit, or day 6? Day 6 of the summit. And we have seen so many extraordinary people come here and deliver the most beautiful breakthrough sessions, wisdom, love, journeys of their own discoveries, so much generosity and heart in the summit. And I just want to give the context once more, just as this like midway mark of what this is truly about. And so a couple of years ago, there was this moment that in the middle of my life where I least expected it, I was called to make an offer to gather people in faith of something, like we were supposed to do something. And I really didn't have much information at the time. I went in full faith. And for those of you who know me, I've built this very solid brand that means the world to me. And to jeopardize that brand in any way would be like cutting off a limb for me. Like this is the most important, beautiful thing I've built for my life. Like I would never jeopardize it, but the intuition to trust myself and to basically put this call out and to say, I don't know what is supposed to happen here, but I have this feeling I've got to say it. You know, I'm opening this container. This is the price for it. And there's no information yet. And anybody who's supposed to be there, you know, let me know. And next thing I knew, there were the perfect clients for what it ended up being, who said, yes, I'm in, for no reason, with no knowledge, with nothing at all. Just like I'm in, I don't know why, I don't know how, but I'm here. And over the length of time I had been told, I had heard from my intuition was that it would take a year. But I had also heard the message, this is going to last a lot longer than you think. There's a lot of messages that were guided through this, some that were shocking to me, because parts of this container that I created, this mastermind that I created with these clients, went against some of the things I said I would ever do again. Like creating a year-long container that starts and ends with people. I had said I would never do that again. Even creating a summit like this, I had said I would never do again. And so it was very interesting for me when those two things ended up being what I was guided to include as part of this incredible thing. And we had 2 years together where every person in the channel got to have one-on-one coaching. So we all got to witness every single participant in depth. It wasn't like we were all there and I spoke. It was like every person contributed something. And between every call, there was an opportunity for other people to discuss things that were maybe brought up from another person's call. So we went very deep in those 2 years. Some of the women even created opportunities to meet each other in real life. There was a retreat in Tulum that was created where the women actually met in Mexico, and some of them spent some time in person together. This was all their own doing. And one of the things that I really presented in this channel is I said, my hope for you is that you can find your leadership, that you don't just join a space hoping someone's going to create something for you, that you take this as an opportunity to build yourself, your friendships, your connections, your leadership, your way, that you come for what you came for. And the women that are here leading this summit are women who came into a container out of pure faith and really understood the assignment. That what was supposed to happen is they were supposed to find themselves, not because of the channel, but in the channel, which is such a different thing than what most people tend to do in a personal development space. They wait for someone else to hand them a transformation instead of actively being a part of the transformation. Every single woman that is presenting for you during the summit has blown me away in one or more ways, with their resilience, their courage, their strength, their love, their compassion, their support of another woman for no reason. There's been so much beauty in these 2 years, and I'm so proud to showcase these women, because what I feel like you can already tell is there's not one person here with an agenda that's boasting, that's trying to get you to think something or feel something. These are genuine stories from women who've walked with themselves and other women and have found a path, a gateway from faith to faith. And I think that is the coolest, most extraordinary thing we could have ever presented to the world. And so what was really spectacular is this next speaker that's coming on. I knew before the channel, and I've met this person in person. This is a woman that I bumped into on the beach in Troncones, Mexico in 2017. And we were both at the same resort. And when we met, there was this beautiful connection. I ended up taking, helping her a little bit with social media. I think we had a few conversations back and forth, but it was just like it wouldn't have been possible for me to forget her. She has a very unique energy, a very childlike, playful, goddess in the wind kind of energy that you just don't forget. She's a grown up with a childlike spirit that I think everyone wishes they could still touch. And I remember her on that beach as a very unique point in my life. And so fast forward a few years later, Karen connects with me through now my evolving business and ends up coming into my world through other ways. And next thing lands in the channel. And I saw a very different Karen in that channel when we first started talking. There's things in her life that had gone in a certain direction, and she was trying to find her way back to that freedom, to that version of her that felt so alive before. And through our conversations in the channel that were honestly some of the most shocking when I look back in hindsight, the transformation of the person, Karen has really come into herself in a way that I am blown away by. It is nowhere near the girl I met on the beach. This is a woman. And it is nowhere near the woman I saw, figuring herself out in the middle of the channel. The person that you're going to see today has done so much inner work, but the beauty, like, I can't believe the transformation. I look at the call that I had with Karen back then, and I look at the Karen you're going to see today, and I see two different women entirely. The maturity, the intelligence, the spirit, the art, the love, the passion, the knowing she can do things. Like, there is something, this person has transcended something in this channel. And I'm so excited for her to be here with me. And I'm so excited that I met her in person. I've seen this transformation, and we get to show what's possible, because I think all of us have moments in our life where we wonder if we can ever get ourselves back. And Karen is an example of how you can get yourself better than back. You get yourself better, and she's really blown me away during these 2 years in the channel. So without any further ado, I would love to bring forward the gorgeous, fabulous Karen McMullen.
Thank you so much, Melanie. What an amazing introduction.
Like, this smile, the vibe, like, hello.
I had to dress up for you, of course.
I'm just so happy, and I'm excited. You're gonna be showing up here. You've got a story for us, and I know that you do so well when you riff. And anyone who's ever seen any of Karen's YouTube channels, she's used to just being in front of the camera and saying what she's got to say. And so we're gonna honor that flow today. And I'm gonna let you take the stage in a moment, but I really just want to anchor in before you even start how I know so many of us are blown away by your transformation. You posted a video on YouTube, and I'm going to share it to my story later, of that call, of parts of that call. I was looking at your face. I'm like, how does someone change? You softened, you glow, like something happened. And I'm so excited for us to find out what all of that was.
Yes, a lot happened.
A lot happened.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to speak today directly to anyone who considers themselves to be very sensitive and energetically aware, because a lot of the things that I've had to move through have related to my degree of sensitivity, and how that has felt more like a weakness than a gift or a strength. And I really feel that when I met you, I was in a place of discouragement, because I had had a thriving coaching career quite a bit prior to that, but was very disillusioned by the experience, and things had gone poorly for me. And so I completely withdrew from that. And I was reluctant to share my light. And then I was in a coffee shop one day, and I watched one of your lives, and all of a sudden I was bawling my eyes out. It was the week that you'd had a $1 million week. And I was I was living in Canada. It was during COVID, and I had returned to Canada after being in Mexico. And I was really struggling because the cost of living in Canada is so much higher than in Mexico. And I was at every angle just trapped in lack and feeling like I would never get out of it and not knowing how I would ever get out of it. And then I watched your live, and something in me shifted in that moment. And it was like I opened up to what's really possible when a light worker learns how to use the friggin' internet.
That is perfect.
And so that's really the beginning point of this story.
Oh
is
my gosh.
the people who it's for, because I felt your transmission. I felt like you were doing some kind of like energetic voodoo through the interwebs, and it was landing on me and it was doing stuff. And I had, I started watching your stuff, and then I went into the free Alpha Femme group and I started watching your programs, and literally I had electric waves moving through my body at night. Like I couldn't sleep. And I was like, what is this?
That is so wild. Do you know, I'm going to tell you like a thing. That is the first time that anyone has ever said that to me, and it hasn't felt scary to hear. Like whenever anyone's told me that, I'm like, I didn't do anything. I was just talking. I swear. Like, I don't know. And it's like, if that was your experience and that caused this, I'm so freaking grateful, because all I really ever did was show up as me. But I guess there's something that comes through the screen sometimes, whether I like it or not. And I'm going to honor that from this point forward after this conversation, because I've always resisted that. And I'm not gonna lie, most of the time when people, share that openly, it's to say that I'm doing some kind of witchcraft in a negative way. And I'm like, I'm not doing witchcraft. Like I'm just talking. I don't understand, but I'm gonna take responsibility that something comes through the screen and that it's right for some people and that it isn't right for other people. But you actually just in that sentence, you shifted something in my heart. So I want to thank you for sharing that part of it, the journey with me.
You're very welcome. Okay, let's go. I'm ready.
Perfect. So I'm going to take myself off the screen. So we've got Karen, and then when you're ready for me to come back, just call me right back up.
Amazing.
All right.
Okay, I'm so excited, so grateful for this opportunity. And thank you to all of you that are showing up today that have come here specifically to be there for me. I know you're here and I'm so grateful. And for those of you that consider yourself to be energetically aware and frequency based, light workers, star seeds, I call you emissaries of light. This is really for you. And even if you don't consider yourself in that category, there's probably something in here for you as well, because this is a capacity I believe all humans have. It's just whether or not you've chosen to awaken it. And so as I'm sharing my story, I'm not here to talk about myself. I'm sharing my story because there are many keys in the story. And if you decide to hear them, and if it's right for you to hear them, those keys can unlock doors for you. They can shorten your journey and allow you to learn from what I have, toiled and taken time and energy and money to learn. So pick up the keys that are for you. And of course, there will be other things in my story that are not relevant to you at all, and that won't speak to the truth of your path. And of course, honor that and know that, because it's very important that you follow your inner truth and that you don't lead yourself astray by assuming that the way that it was for me needs to be the way that it is for you, because that's just not true. So I want to start my story when I was living in Mexico. So I lived in Mexico for 5 years prior to COVID. And during that time, I was really doing a lot of inner work. I was becoming a yoga teacher. I was meditating for hours a day. I became a instructor of a dance class, and I was learning salsa and bachata. And generally, I was having a pretty good time just doing my thing. And again, I had withdrawn from the coaching career that I had prior to that because I was a little bit wounded and disillusioned. And one day I was meditating and I began to hear a voice dictating text. And this voice spoke to me in a voice that was unfamiliar to my own. It was more almost biblical sounding, which was very odd because I had no religious upbringing. And so I began to write down what the voice said. And this voice was guiding me to better myself. And it was, I became aware over time that this was really my own direct connection with God. And this was a conversation with God that I was having. And it really strengthened me. And at some point I began to think, this is a key. I wonder if this is not just for me, this voice, because some of the messages that were coming through seemed to be bigger than for me. And I'm so glad I had that thought, because it led me, like I thought maybe these are just ramblings of like a psychotic lady living in Mexico. But I gave it to a few friends who I trusted their opinion, who were writers, who knew about the written word and its power. And they came back to me and they said, this is valuable. This is something objectively valuable. And so I then took that entire year, 2019, to create this book. I don't know if you can see it. The light is a bit strong. Alchemy of Consciousness. There it is. So this is a very beautiful book. I put a lot into the formatting. I worked with an incredible publisher, Pamela Lynch, to create it because I really wanted to work with someone who was going to honor the channeled nature of the book and the unusual languaging of things, and yet also make it very readable. So I worked with her, and I was living now in central Mexico. I was living on less than $1,000 a month. I somehow, got the money to pay this woman to create it. I was house sitting because I couldn't pay rent. Like, I was broke, okay? And I put this book out into the world. But the thing was, I had no audience. So there was no book launch. It just went up on Amazon and then no one bought it. After an entire year of work, okay? Like, this is an entire year of my life I devoted to creating this thing, and then there was no one to buy it. So this is something I sometimes joke, like if a tree falls in a forest, does anyone hear it? Like, if a light worker creates a book but no one reads it, did she ever really even make a difference? Like, did it transform anything? And so this is the next thing to happen. And this is kind of related to Melanie, what you were saying when I was telling you about your transmission. I had an identity shift. So somewhere on that, in and around that time, I began to channel a second book. So that one's here now. This one, the first title for it is Awaken to Your Starseed Mission. And I feel like there's another title for it. So I have a couple that I'm working on, and I'm working on publishing it now. It's written, and now it's just fine tuning it. But the first chapter in this book is called Emissary of Light. And this message changed my life. And this is the power of transmission. The message was, Karen, you are an emissary of light. You come from a realm where what is normal and innate to you is to understand harmony you transmit on a frequency level. You're a frequency communicator. You're here to communicate through frequency. You are an energy being. And energy communication is the fastest way to transform anything. When you change something on the frequency level, it changes the form. And so you are an energy healer. And this is what you're meant to do. You're meant to transmit the light of your consciousness. And you can do this now. This is who you are. So it's already you. And you don't need to take a Reiki course. In fact, please don't, because that will interfere with the innate gifts that you already have. This is you. It's built into the fabric of your being. And I received that transmission. And this is the power of transmission, is you get it comes in information. So you get the message, the words, but the message is much more than the words, because the information can serve as an activation. So an activation is something that's happening on the frequency level. And the activation in and of itself can cause a transformation that then leads to integration and a new creation. So it's a process that unfolds. And this is why understanding my identity as an emissary of light was very important for me, because it allowed me to see that I had been doing this work all along without even knowing it. And without claiming it fully, it had been causing problems for me. So I now understood myself in a different light and began to take responsibility for this gift. And I also started to work differently with people. I began to do frequency level work. I began to practice channeling and working with people on a frequency level, and also being very consensual about it, because at this time on Earth, this awareness is not widespread. And so those of us who have these gifts, we need to ask permission before we go unleashing frequencies all over people. So when I'm when I'm working with clients one-on-one, and then I actively begin to really channel for them, I always just make sure they have an inner yes to that. So again, even just right now, there's many things I'm going to be sharing with you that could shift things for you in an instant. And so, if you don't feel ready for that, then maybe just come back to this at another time when you feel like it's the time for you. So always honor this about yourself. Okay. So there was that identity shift. And then a few months later, I got another message that really changed things for me. And this was one morning, I was feeling quite sad and heavy. And I just went downstairs and sat on the couch and started meditating and asked for guidance. I said, why am I sad? Like, everything's good in my life. I love dancing. I'm teaching yoga. I have a nice boyfriend. Like, I love my friends. It's kind of a cool life, and it's pretty good. And I've done a lot of healing work, and I feel like I'm pretty good where I'm at. And the message was, Karen, like almost like being shaken, like, Karen, you are here to transmit the light of your consciousness to thousands of people. That's what this said. Thousands of thousands is millions of people, by the way. I had to do the math, but I think that it didn't want to tell me millions, because that would have scared me. But I was like, okay, thousands of thousands. But you're here to transmit the light of your awareness and your unique consciousness, your frequency, to millions of people. That was the point of your life when you came here. And right now, for someone to receive the light of your consciousness, What needs to happen is they have to go to the cafe on your street and somehow be there at the same time as you, happen to speak about a problem, and you decide to talk to them, which is also very unlikely. So the method, or they need to be your friend and ask you for advice. The method for all of this light of consciousness to come into people's lives is extremely inefficient. And you will literally never be happy until you figure out how to use the internet to reach these people and to do so effectively. And you need to pay anyone you need to pay. You need to invest whatever you need to invest. You need to study whatever you need to study in order to learn how to use social media. And I was like, oh, message received. And it was so cool. It was so cool because I had so much resistance to social media prior to receiving that transmission. I judged people on social media so much. I thought it was such a lame way to use your time and energy. And literally after I received that message, all of my resistance went away 100%. I had no resistance to being visible, to sharing my light through the internet. So you can take that key right now if you choose. You can just let go of your resistance right now if you are truly devoted to serving God's will. And I'm not speaking about a religious God, I'm speaking about spirit moving through you. So then I just went nuts. I began researching everything I could about social media. I was on YouTube, I was like watching videos, and the first step was to choose what platform I was going to work with. And I think this is a very important choice, and something I loved what Melanie says in Impact Academy, her social media program, that choose the one that you love. Like choose the thing that you actually just enjoy. And I had some funny things happen in my months prior to that, where I kept meeting people who had grown exponentially on YouTube. One guy I met through dancing, and he had a YouTube channel where he was searching for elves in Mexico. So he's Mexican, and he just like had, I think now he's at like 200,000 subscribers or 300,000. And he just makes a living making videos where he goes out into nature and he looks for elves and he never finds them. Spoiler alert. But somehow he manages to captivate people's attention for years and years and years, looking for elves. So he told me, Karen, you've got to get on YouTube. And I didn't listen to him until I received that message. And I started looking into YouTube. And one of the things that I love about YouTube is that a video that you make now can suddenly become searched and found through the algorithm even a year from now, and then 3 years from now. So I have videos that I made 2 years ago that currently generate me hundreds of views every day. So everything you put on YouTube is an asset. It is going into a library that the algorithm is aware of. And if someone just goes on the internet and searches the keywords that are in that video, it has a chance to connect with that person because it's the second largest search engine in the world. So I studied YouTube and I decided on YouTube as my platform. And I began to record YouTube videos. And nowadays I have filmed, I think, over 250 videos. The first year it took me over a year to get 1,000 subscribers. And then the next year I got 3,000. The year after that, I think I got just under 6,000. And now I have almost 14,000 subscribers. And one of the things that is great for me is I've studied human design extensively, and human design is, it's like kind of in the core of my worldview. I see human design all over the place. And so it's a great thing for YouTube because it's very keyword specific. So it's easy for people to go onto YouTube and search for videos about human design and find me. And so that's really the gateway where a lot of my videos are reaching people, is through human design. But I also shared my channeled messages on there because at the core, why I started that channel was because I wanted an audience for my book. And I really wanted to share the message. And the core message of this book is really about how important it is to establish your direct connection with God. And from that direct connection, you will know what your role is. And it's especially pivotal that you know your role because we are in the time of the grand reorganization. So I received a message in this book about the grand reorganization, which is, I'm sure you've noticed, a huge shift on the planet that's taking place, and how that is a destructive process because we are really needing to dissolve the structures that we've been living with, because they're fundamentally based in inequality, colonialism, and the destruction of the earth. So they're not sustainable. And so they need to fall away, and new patterns of living need to be reborn. And in that process, there's more instability. And so what is going to keep you well and really in alignment is your own direct connection with source in that process. So there's a practice in this book, chapter 11, which is really just a very simple way of connecting with God, which is also just very easy. And it's just a matter of being aware. You're probably already very connected and you might not be aware of it. And unless you are aware, which is amazing, in which case get onto social media, please, and share that. Okay. So one of the things that has been so satisfying for me about having a YouTube channel is that the wisdom that I have to share and that I desire to share with people is now readily at hand. The other day, a friend of mine who I hardly ever talk to, actually I met her in Mexico too. She just like messaged me out of the blue and she's like, Karen, I'm just heartbroken. I'm going through this moment. I was like, okay, here's a channeled message about heartbreak. It's super good. Here, just go listen to that. And she's like, oh, thank you so much. That was exactly what I needed. And then I meet people, they're like, oh my gosh, human design, this is amazing. I'm like, yeah, here's a whole list of videos to go watch. It's like, I just feel like I'm just like, dun, 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 like, here's a video for that. Like, I have a video for everything. You don't know where to live? Okay, go listen to this. And so all of my wisdom is like in one place, and it's not inside of me. And this is really important. I meet emissaries of light all the time that are just like bogged down because they are like, they're clogged up. They're just like full of wisdom, but they're not actually sharing it, which is inherently frustrating. And it's not supposed to be that way. So the problem is that they're not distributing their wisdom. And so when you start to distribute it and you make it available, then you're doing your job, basically. And this is kind of how I approached YouTube from the beginning. Was, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if anyone's going to watch these videos, but I can't live with myself knowing that I'm here to share the light of my consciousness and not do what I've been instructed to do. So I'm doing this because it is my instruction. And if I take care of my part of the equation, then at least I can live in the integrity of knowing that I did what I was meant to do, and just trust in the energetic match for that. So that was all taking place in Mexico. And now comes the next part, because it's one thing to build an audience, and then it's another thing to have that audience view you as someone they want to work with and someone they want to buy your book from. So this was the next part of the equation, and it became heavy on my shoulders when I moved back to Canada, which was during COVID, as I shared earlier, that now I had to pay a hefty rent. I had to pay for food. If I wanted to do anything social, I needed money. Everything was just so much more expensive. And it was a real wake-up call for me, because I hadn't really needed to worry about money the entire time I was living in Mexico, because you can live quite well there on not a lot. So, and not only that, I really wanted to help people. I wanted to be more successful than I was, and it was discouraging. So I hadn't really found a mentor though, because I didn't resonate with anyone that was out there. Like, I had been surrounded by the bro marketing people for over a decade, and I knew that their approaches don't work for me, because I'd tried them, and I'd also seen, like, they're just not that sensitive to energy. So they can do things that aren't that aligned and not that fine-tuned, that I can't do, that aren't in integrity for me. And so when I found Melanie, I was like, okay, this person is working with energy, and she's a millennial, and she knows the internet and how it works, and I can learn from her. So I had those electric shocks moving through my body that I told you about. And somehow I mustered the courage to give her, I think it was like 15 grand US, which is much more than I'd made in many years in an annual salary. So it was like a crazy, crazy thing to do. But I was also comforted, because I had received that transmission that told me, you need to spend money on learning this stuff, and you need, whatever it takes is what you need to give to this. Like, there's nothing that matters more than this. So I think I want to emphasize that this is an important thing for light workers to see, is I took full responsibility for the creation of what I'm here to bring into the world. So I wasn't sitting around being like, I have these energetic gifts, and someone will finally notice me, and then they're going to like elevate me onto Oprah's stage. It doesn't work that way. You need to it could, let's not bar that possibility, but you need to take responsibility. And all along the way, I was just following my instruction. It was like, okay, I've received these messages. Now I need to create a book. Okay. So then that was a whole process. And then, okay, now I need to create a YouTube. And then, okay. And now I can't sell anything from my YouTube, even though I have an audience. Okay. It was step by step. I was being presented with the next step. And I met Melanie, and I came into her world. And at that time, I think I had around 3,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I wasn't really selling very many books, and I wasn't really selling my transformational work that I do. And so I kind of went into her world, and I was surrounded by these like younger people, you know, with their like fancy hats, and they're all like talking about vibe. Oh, what's the vibe? Oh yeah, it's such a vibe. And I was irritated every time I heard this word. I'm like, what are they talking about vibe? Come on. Anyway, after some time in Melanie's world, I was there in her Alpha Femme experience for an entire year. I started to understand vibe and understand that there really isn't a better word for it, okay? And so, so Melanie, you know, showed me the importance of brand, because I had studied sales and marketing before when I was a coach. And I even created a program called Your Genius Brand and sold it for years. But this was before the internet was really a big thing. So I kind of understood that it was important to have a brand, but in the day and age of now Instagram and just like the visual representation is so important. And I think this is even more true for those of us who are emissaries of light, because our biggest challenge is that the thing that we do is non-physical. It's not tangible. You can't see it. You can't touch it. Hopefully you can feel it, but the way to transmit it is through showing it somehow, like representing it visually. And so, you know, whatever your core frequencies are, you need to first know what they are. And second, you need to be able to show that. Instead of telling people, although it's good to tell as well, but to be able to just have them pick up and look at your Instagram and just get the vibe right away. So it's got to have some kind of look and feel. And it's also important that it looks good and professional, because, you know, because what we do is really intangible and weird in our current society. It's more important that we present ourselves with a lot of credibility. And so showing it with somewhat of a quality and coherence immediately gives the feeling of trustworthiness. And this is something that I've learned also through human design, because I have a lot of individual circuitry, which means I'm here to bring a lot of mutation, creativity, innovation, difference. And the tribe and the collective are very wary of individuals. Individuals are dangerous because the tribe wants to keep things as they are and traditional, and they don't want change. And the collective wants to keep things as they are because they know that the logical pattern is what we know worked in the past and it will work in the future. So let's not change it. The individual comes along and brings mutation, and people will be fearful of mutation. They don't want change. And so the more that you can learn to convey your message articulately in a way that makes sense, that explains it and presents it with authority and with confidence and with quality, then people will be like, oh, well, that actually kind of does make sense. And maybe I could open up to that. And so it starts to bring more credibility, and it helps people feel trust. So I think it's also important to elevate ourselves, because I truly believe that those of us who are working on the frequency level are the most valuable people on the planet right now. We one day, I know it, will be the most paid in the world. And I think, Melanie's an example of that. So we can't be the hippies with our little like pants with holes in them, dancing around like fairies and saying, oh yeah, let's just barter. Or yeah, like I do $55 tarot readings. If we want to accurately value and convey the truth of what we do and how incredibly life-changing it can be. And so I'm sorry if I insulted you with that. Oh my goodness. I realized I used to think I was a hippie, but I'm definitely not.
I just want to say, if that was an insult, it was the most beautifully articulated insult ever, and I thought it was brilliant. So I thought that was very humorous, and I enjoyed it tremendously. Just so you know, please continue.
Thank you. Well, and I have been that because when I was living in Mexico, that was like my realm, and I know what it's like to just kind of desire to make it easy for people to work with you. And yet you can still decide to give your work for free, but convey it like accurately, like, hey, this is a super valuable thing I'm doing with you. And then people will feel like, oh my gosh, like, I will, when I do that with, for example, sharing my work with people I meet in Cuba, I know they're not going to pay me for a full reading, but I'd let them know the value of it. And I educate them about what they're really receiving so that they can be aware that this is a pretty amazing opportunity that they're receiving in this moment. And they can take it with the weight that it has. So vibe is really about capturing a non-visible frequency into something tangible. And this is really what you stand for. So, in my work, I have a Discover Your Genius process that helps people understand what their vibe is. I also do my readings, and my gift is to see the energetic signature of your essential self and how to bring it into form. So, in my case, one of my vibes is freedom. And so if you go on my Instagram, you're going to see me looking free and being free. And that's really who I am. And so it's just, it's natural to kind of convey that in the imagery so that you get a feeling for it the moment that you see my work. And this isn't super like, don't hold yourself back with this and make it an excuse to like to get stifled by perfection. Like I had this moment where I was in Melanie's work, and because Melanie, okay, let's face it, like she's incredible at using her camera. Everything she does looks amazing. And so like, we're probably not going to build such a strong brand, especially not at the beginning. But, one of the messages I got along the way was, I was like, well, my brand isn't like so good. And I haven't figured out how to make it look really great. And the guidance was like, Karen, it doesn't matter what your brand is. It just matters that you have one. So if you have one, just go with it. Like that's enough for now. And I've really seen this is true because as I've been doing this for years, like you will look at my stuff now and you'll think, wow, that looks pretty good. And I figured it out. Like I've figured a lot of things out over time, but it took time. And it's just a process. So don't discourage yourself from engaging in the process just because the initial results don't look amazing, because you'll get better with it. Okay, so then there's a part of vibe that is the actual frequency you live in, like truly how you feel most of the time. And that is, like the way I look at it, it's like you've got your core frequencies that are your God-given blueprint of your true essential self. But then, you've got caked onto that some distortions, like I'm not good enough, I'm never going to find love. I've been burned so many times before, there's no point, like, oh, that guy hurt my feelings and I'm just resentful, I'm holding on to this and that. Like all of those things are like layers of distortion that then cloud the vibe. So let's say your original vibe was like this radiant yellow light that was just emanating out of you that's here to be shared. And now you've got this gray film all over it. And so when people receive your vibe, they get kind of this grayish yellow. So they're not really getting the full transmission. And you might not even be aware of it. So, at the time when I had my coaching call with Melanie 2 years ago, I had done a lot of healing, like almost 20 years worth, steadily with conviction and dedication. And still my vibe wasn't conveying the fullness of my light. And I feel like this is a really important point to make, because your healing work doesn't end until it's done. I don't think we're ever really done. I think it's kind of like brushing your teeth. It's like, you got to keep doing it. But there's also like, nowadays, on the whole, I feel so much better than I used to feel. And I really want you to know that if you don't feel good and joyous and loved, and like you really are able to take care of yourself, if you're kind of sluggish and it's hard for you to go grocery shopping, or it's hard for you to make yourself food, and it's hard for you to do the daily things of life, and everything seems difficult, it just means there's more to do. And don't stop until you actually get to a place where you actually really do feel good. And there might be some things you need to adjust in your environment, like you might need to move, which is actually something that I got from my session with Melanie, which was that, I really wasn't happy in Canada. And I had already received this message from my guides, but Melanie affirmed it. She's like, Karen, you actually like kind of hate your life there. So even though your marketing is good and you're showing things nicely, your real energy is like, I don't like my life. So when you don't like your life, you're an energetic match for people who don't like their life. And usually when people don't like their life, they're financially struggling. And so, you're an energetic match for lack. And it was very true, because as I moved, ended up going to the Dominican Republic, which is the birthplace of bachata. And I lived for 5 months in Cuba, which is where salsa is born, and like dancing and being with those cultures that truly feel like home to me. Like I was born in Canada, but like seriously, I feel way more at home around the Caribbean people, because they're just so loving. They're so energetically aware, naturally, so energetically attuned. I have so many crazy stories I could tell you. And I'm so full of life, so much fun. And so being around them, was just so healing for me. And I had the best time ever. So as I, and I really did a lot of healing work while I was in the Caribbean. So that whole process made me much more of an energetic match for the kind of clients and people that I'm really here to serve. So there's just one more thing I want to say, is I have really deepened my connection with God and my devotion to serving God's will. And again, this is not a religious, I'm not speaking about religion now. I'm speaking my direct connection with the light of consciousness and truth. And, that devotion is what guides me in my creation of what to create, what not to create. And I feel as emissaries of light, if we are studying social media, and we're learning these things, that needs to stay in the fore always. And as I have strengthened my direct connection, it has been unbelievable, because now God is on my marketing team. Like the crazy stories that have unfolded for me now, like people, like a woman walking her dog who's doesn't even know about human design. She's listening to YouTube, and then all of a sudden YouTube sends her a video of mine after her video is over. She hears my voice and she just knows that she has to work with me and books a session. Another woman who's been following me for years on my YouTube, she's meditating and she's asking for guidance about what her next step is. And her guidance says, learn to delegate and book a session with Karen McMullen. Another guy who I met 8 years ago at a 3-day conference. I don't even really remember meeting him. He's been on my Facebook. He wakes up in the morning and is like, his inner guidance comes in, you have to study human design. You have to learn about your human design. He opens his Facebook, he sees a video of me dancing, and then he notices that I do human design. So he goes on my YouTube channel, binge watches my videos all morning, comes on a live with me, and books a session. So these are the kind of things that can happen once you've learned how to use the internet. And now you're transmitting your light, and it's all set up in a way that works, and you're receiving. It makes no sense. It is beyond logic. And the best part about it is I friggin' love these people. We have the best time. Not a single one of them is someone I don't like, because they're a frequency match. So I've emanated my frequency, they took up the message, and then it's all a yes. So my emissaries of light, I hope that you got some keys today. And I feel like what I would love to do is just put a post in the Alpha Femme group, and I really would love to hear what you received today. So I'm going to post that, and if you can comment, I would love to know what you got from this message. So that was all I wanted to say.
Oh my gosh, that was so good. That was so good. That was a treat. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so you know what I think would be really cool is if you shared the link to the YouTube video that you made about your session with me, so people can see the transformation and have people answer on that video, because just to see the evolution, I think, is enough to just blow anybody's mind. And so if they have a chance to watch that too, I think it would be great. So let's post the link to that video and write your post in the body. So there's a couple of things I just want to share here, because I'm so in love with everything you shared today, and you nailed this talk. Like, let's just say, like, this was nailed. We were all glued to the screen. You nailed it. First of all, God is on my marketing team is such an incredible sentence, and I hope everyone can take that away with them forever, because when I think about it, I think the description of the channel was God was the marketing team. I don't think God was on the marketing team. I think God was the marketing team that day, because every single person who bought it was just like, I received the calling. I received the calling. Like the whole thing didn't make sense. And I feel like that is such a beautiful way of looking at it. God is on your marketing team. And I want to just bring forward a couple of thoughts. So one thing you explained is like the brand. It doesn't need to be perfect. And I feel like the energetic or the vibe of that sentence is really important to capture, because I've seen people say things like, it doesn't matter, who cares? But just put out there what you want to put out there. And I agree to a certain extent, but then I would say, answer the question, who cares? Because I care. That's why I have a brand. Because I could say like, who cares? But then that would mean I don't even. If I say I don't care about the brand, so they shouldn't care about the brand. Okay. But when I say I care about the brand, so I create the brand and then people see what I care about, that's what your brand is. That's the vibe of the brand. It's not what do I need to do to impress other people or how do I get people to care? It's how do I transmit my care for this through the vibe, through the screen, through the imagery, through whatever it is. And I got my camera in 2019 at Christmas. And so I didn't have this. I took all my pictures with my phone before that. And my brand has increasingly gotten better and better and better with the years because who cares? I care. Can I make it even better? Yes, because I care. You guys don't need me to have my brand be any better. My clients aren't going to not buy from me because my brand isn't better than last year's brand. It's if I know I could make it even more beautiful and I didn't, have I really, really served my full purpose? And that's part of my mission. And that's how I feel. And it might not be what everyone feels, but I just love watching how your brand evolved because it really is like I was watching the video that you're going to post in here later. And I was just looking at the quality of the video and how you spliced it all up together. I was blown away when I watched. I was like, this is world class. Like, I want you to do my videos. How do you do that? How do you make it look like that? Like, this looks so good. And I know the journey you've been on. I know how much energy and time it takes to create a video like that. And so I feel like you value your clients so much more. You value your viewers so much to be willing to put that amount of work into a video. And because of that, the frequency of I value you enough to put this amount of energy on a video I could have recorded in my iPhone, backlit. Like, I value you and your experience watching me enough that I put this much care in it. There's an energetic match to that. And so I really want to say I'm blown away by the quality of what you've put out there. You're really nailing it. I watched you grow. This isn't one of those like overnight things. Like, you built this and you built it with all of your heart. And so I absolutely love that. And the last part I want to just acknowledge is the moment in the channel. If you do watch this video of her, and I really hope that you do, because you will see it's almost like, it was almost like the power was hovering above you. Like, you knew it was there, but you couldn't touch it. And now it's like it's inside of you and it radiates from everywhere. And what was so powerful in that session, there was this moment where you started giggling. And I was telling you, like, the wiggles and the giggles, that's how we know that you're in the vibe, because when you're in alignment, you're the most lighthearted, playful, happy person. And it was so fast, the move. It literally, I was even shocked. You know, so often you get on a coaching call with a client and you tell them this huge life-changing thing you really see for them. And they're like, thank you for your point of view. And maybe they do it in 10 years and say, my coach told me that 10 years ago. But very rarely does someone pack a bag by the time you're done saying what you had to say and end up in the Dominican Republic before you even realize your session is over. I could not believe how fast I saw you on that beach, and you changed every week. It was in the moves, it was in the dance, it was in the way your shoulders moved, it was in the lightness in your face and in your skin and in your energy. Like, you just started to move. And it was the most extraordinary thing. We all watched it week after week, like, what the heck is happening to Karen? And it was such an extremely valuable experience for us, because it was one of those eat, pray, love adventures where you're literally reading the book in real time. That's what it felt for us to be part of your journey in the channel. Watching you learn to dance, like, I got emotional on multiple occasions just opening my phone and watching you in a dance class, moving and dancing, where I knew just weeks before it was like my dream, my wish, my want is this. Watching you do it, being the kind of person who says you want something and actually doing it, like, that's so rare. And there are so many people who receive transmissions from God, but not all people write them down. Not all people make a book out of them. Not all people write 2 books out of them. Not all people create a YouTube channel. Not all people spend as much money as it takes to learn how to do this thing. Not all people listen to the gifts and to the channels and to the downloads, and you did. And you can just tell what you've done for yourself. Like, you've built yourself into this extraordinary magnetic frequency. And it was like, it was a decision after decision after decision, but you just freaking did it. And so often we see people just disappear and appear, you know, someone just appears out of nowhere. But the gift we had is we got to watch it every week. It's undeniable. It happened one day at a time, one chapter at a time. It's rock solid and it's so inspiring. And I just want to thank you for having been that for us in the channel. I got the wiggles. So
Thank you, Melanie.
it's my pleasure.
I have to thank you, please. I love you so much. And it has been, I think God created this for me, because before the channel started, I was like, damn, I really want to be in a mastermind with Melanie. And I kept looking at different mentors and I was like, I need support, but damn, I can't afford $200,000. I just don't have it. And then this came and I said yes to it. And this was crazy for me to say yes to. And it was amazing. And I'm so grateful to have gotten to know you in this way, because you really are a beautiful person. And I think that I've received that from you. It's like the money doesn't matter. It's the person you are. And then the money comes because of who you are. And so thank you so much. Mwah.
Mwah. I am so grateful for these years together, and I'm so excited to see what you do in the future. Like, this is just the beginning, and I can't wait to watch it all unfold for you. Thank you so much for watching these transmissions with us, for being a part of this channel, for feeling what we're feeling, for seeing what we're seeing, for unraveling what we've unraveled, what we continue to unravel. We have one last speaker of the day today, and then we'll be back again tomorrow with more speakers. If you can make it tonight, you're in for a treat. This is going to be extraordinary. Lisa is such an incredible soul, and there's so much magic in the air. So please come back for us tonight and tomorrow and all the things. We appreciate you so much. Karen, you're a masterpiece. Thank you for everything. And we will see you on the internet.